This program contains scenes of nonsensical garbage and coarse language and is intended for a mature audience. Viewer discretion is advised.
Why, hello, my little pumpkins. I wanted to start a new series on this channel because one of my absolute favorite things is Bravo, and I cannot get enough of that network. I have been watching Bravo for a very long time, and as a millennial who suffers from severe anxiety, Bravo is my comfort blanket. I rewatch all the series over and over and over again to the point where I feel like I can spit them out verbatim. And I love Bravo because I love train wrecks. Last year I created a video about the season 1 of Vanderpump Rules. And at the time, that's when the big Scandival thing happened, and I got excited rewatching the series again. Unfortunately, I never made a follow-up video to that because, 2023 sucked all the balls. But I knew that this year I would start that series. It's 5 months too late, but whatever, we are here now. This video is going to be a little bit different from the last video because, while I do love recapping seasons and painting a picture, and I'll definitely do so for older seasons, when things that are currently airing, I kind of want to try to keep up with it. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about Summer House. Now, if you didn't know, Summer House premiered on Bravo in 2017. There are 8 seasons of this show, and while I would love to start from the beginning, the current season is airing. And it's just so good. So in the future, I'll have recaps of the previous seasons, but in the meantime, we're just gonna dive into like the first 3 episodes. But before I talk about the episodes and show you how I pretty much, created this look, because while I'm talking about the episodes, I am doing my makeup because I gotta go to work. I want to give you a little bit of background about the show. So Summer House follows a group of friends who share a summer house in the Hamptons. If you've never heard of the Hamptons, it's the quote-unquote place to be in the summer. And for those in New York City who can afford it, that's where they usually spend their summers. It's about 2 hours from the city. It's beyond beautiful, but it's also overrated. Now, this is coming from someone who is too poor to vacation during the summer there, but I have spent plenty of time out there in 1-lane traffic trying to get an overrated lobster roll that I think I paid about $50 for. And this place claimed it was Maine lobster, but I could taste frozen, okay? So I basically know what I'm talking about, but I digress. So let's talk about the cast of characters. First, you have Kyle Cook. He is one of the stars since the beginning of the show. Currently, he has a mullet, which kind of works, so I'm not mad at it. Now, his role of the show is very interesting. If he's not the comic relief, he is a hot ass mess, and he's always in the middle of something. He's an entrepreneur, and he owns the alcohol company Loverboy, which was actually birthed on this show during one of the many seasons. But we'll talk more about that later. But to describe him, he's pretty much a work hard, play hard type of guy. So if he's not stressed out from work, he's usually fucked off his ass, wearing a funny costume, and usually pissing in the woods. Not even joking about it. Feel like there are many seasons where it's just the back of him while he just urinates on a tree. Anyway, then you have his wife, Amanda. Now, Amanda came into the mix around season 2, but was in one-off episodes during season 1. Anyway, she didn't start off as a wife, but she was kind of like a hookup turned girlfriend. And during the many seasons of the show, you do follow their love story, which ultimately led to marriage during season 6. But boy, oh boy, it was rocky. Again, more to come later. But Amanda's cute. I like her. She's definitely the opposite of Kyle, and she definitely gives off the vibe of someone needing a blood transfusion. She is very low energy and is very, very chill compared to her other half. There is also a 9-year age difference between the two. So the math kind of checks out, but she's very sweet, and she's usually a bit of a background character because of her over-the-top husband. But I have a feeling that will all change. And she also works with her husband, Kyle, at Loverboy. So, working and marriage always goes together so well. Anyway, then you have Lindsay. Oh, Lindsay. She's a lot, and that's just being matter of fact about it. She's another one who started at the beginning of the show, and she is a very strongly opinionated lady that has the best fucking one-liners I have ever heard. And she knows what she wants, and she will not stop until she gets it. And I gotta respect that. She is amazing reality TV. Love her or hate her, you cannot stop watching her. That said, from like season 1 to now, girl been on a journey. She was initially working in PR. She had her own firm, the whole 9 yards. And I believe she kind of gave it up because she is now an influencer, which that is, we'll get into that, but all right. Then you have Carl Radke. He's also been there since season 1, and another one who had a very interesting arc. We find out through the seasons, not only is he pretty much a fuckboy, but he had a very strong addiction to drugs and alcohol. So in the beginning, he's very much a party guy and just doing a lot of questionable shit. But since season 6, he has been sober and is in a relationship with Lindsay Hubbard. Well, was. And I say was because they had a very public breakup. And this is the season that we find out what happened, which is why I'm talking about it, because it's just fucking good. That said, he used to work for Loverboy, but he's since left and he's currently not really doing anything. I know that kind of sounds shitty to say, but he doesn't really have a job or anything right now. And he's currently trying to figure out what his next move is. Then you have Danielle. So Danielle started off in season 2 and she was the ex-girlfriend of Carl, but she's also Lindsay's best friend. It's a very weird triangle. Anyway, she's another one that had a really interesting arc on the show. In previous season, she kind of gives the impression that she is a girl's girl, and she's very loyal to a fault. And throughout the series, she had like a longtime boyfriend. They have since split up, so now she's like single and ready to fuck everything. Now, she definitely had a huge falling out with Lindsay in the prior season, but they're kind of on the road to rebuilding their friendship. But currently, she's kind of giving the vibe that she's trying to have a really good time and just not take anything too personally. She's trying to keep things light and enjoys a good deep dicking. And listen, we love that for her. Then you have Paige. Paige came into Summer House around season 3. And interestingly enough, when she came into Summer House, that's when you kind of see like the age divide in the house. Kyle, Lindsay, Carl, Danielle, they're all like 80s babies. So they were like born between like 82 and 88. And then you have like all like the 90s kids, which is Amanda, Paige, and Ciara. Now, Paige is the quintessential influencer, which you kind of think would be super fucking annoying, but it's not. There's something like incredibly like relatable and charismatic about her personality that you genuinely trust what she says about things. It's kind of wild. If only more influencers were like that. Anyway, with her relatable personality, she is very funny and she is incredibly entertaining. And so even though, yeah, she kind of spends majority of the episode in bed, which again, kind of more to talk about that later because it does kind of come into play, she's still very, very entertaining to watch. She is also in a relationship with Craig, who is from Southern Charm, which is another show for another day. Then you have Ciara. So she came to the show in season 5, and her story is really interesting. Season 5 is kind of like the weird COVID year. So she was initially a nurse and then decided to kind of like take a break from her career to be a model. I think she was always a model, but she kind of like fell back into it. She doesn't have the strongest of personalities, considering like say Kyle, for example, or Lindsay, or even Paige. So she can kind of seem a little bit more like a background character, very similar to Amanda in that way. But she's like Paige's best friend in the house. Seems like Paige, Amanda, and Ciara are kind of like their own little triangle. But Ciara seems very nice. She's very cautious. She's beyond gorgeous. But she's definitely, I don't know, she's more reserved. But when you do see her kind of come out, you're like, oh, bitch, I want to get to know you more. But then she kind of retreats back in. So that's kind of like my only complaint about her. She kind of piecemeals things, which is kind of good and bad for reality TV. But anyway, last but not least, we have Gabby. So Gabby came in last season, and Gabby is a fashion editor and a model. And when she first came to the house, I'll be honest, she really didn't stand out. And it's because there was so much fucking drama from last year. It's kind of hard to shine through all the shit. So I feel like in ways she never really could like flush out who she was. So I'm hoping in this season we kind of see more of her. But so far, Gabby seems like a very sweet girl who by far has the best fucking reactions to anything in the house. Like her just face for when drama is happening is amazing. Should be in the dictionary. Anyway, I have a good feeling about her, so I hope we get to know a little bit more about her this season. There are technically 2 other cast members, but I will talk about them as I am doing my makeup. So without further motherfucking ado, let me show you how I created whatever this is. So the first episode opens up to the aftermath, or at the very least, like the day that everything happened. And this is to give you a tease, and that's what I fucking love about Bravo. They know how to suck me in. Now, of course, if you have been following it since last year, then you know that Carl dumped Lindsay, and it was traumatic. This is coming off the heels of Scandival. Could we, the public, take any more? I don't think so. But you kind of have to wonder, was this a coincidence? You decide. Anyway, after like a few minutes of a breakup on camera, which is very uncomfortable, and I cannot fucking wait for that episode, you immediately get this like black screen that's like 2 months before, which is like, fuck me. That was really fast. Okay, so it's the start of the summer and everybody's heading out to the Hamptons. Danielle, Paige, Ciara, and Gabby are in one car, and Kyle and Amanda are in another car. Now, Kyle and Amanda are pretty much on their way to pick up the newest cast member, West Wilson, which, I mean, first and foremost, he has a great fucking name. And he's a sports journalist, but he kind of looks like just, I don't know, just a fun, dorky, lovable dude that you would see in any romantic comedy that's just trying to win the girl over. Like, that's his whole vibe. And I'm just like literally just living for him. So during the car ride, you find out that Lindsay and Carl won't be joining them that weekend. They actually got invited to the White House that weekend. And when I say invited, unlike Ariana from Vanderpump Rules, you kind of find out that Lindsay's publicist friend got them an invitation to go stand on the lawn with the rest of the common folk. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with being invited to the White House, lawn or not. It's just kind of how she says it, kind of almost implying like that she's better than most people. Anyway, you kind of find out that Lindsay is very much looking forward to this DC trip because she has been busy planning this wedding and Carl really hasn't been any help. And this is just a much needed fucking break. Basically, Carl and Lindsay are looking to have fun, to let loose, and just not be involved with the petty drama that they experienced all of last year. We're gonna talk about that season because that's when Lindsay and Danielle had their falling out and he was stuck in the middle. He also had a rift with Kyle. So overall, not a great summer. He doesn't want to repeat it. He just wants to fucking relax. They both want to fucking relax. But are they going to relax? I don't think so, Tim. Now, there are 3 couples within like the Summer House universe in this season. We know Carl and Lindsay. The next couple is Paige and Craig. Now, Craig is not on the show officially. He's a part of Southern Charm, which in the BCU, that is it's a whole other fucking monster that is so good. And we're going to talk about that show too, because there's just so much I don't know, something about Southern people getting drunk. It kills me every time. Anyway, I think Paige and Craig probably have the best relationship out of the 3 couples. So again, we have Carl and Lindsay, Paige and Craig, and then we have Amanda and Kyle. And as I mentioned before, their love story kind of plays out in previous seasons, but a lot of their issues stem from Kyle basically cheating on Amanda and just basically just being overall motherfucking disrespectful. But again, we'll get into it later. Now, it's funny because you kind of start to notice the change in Amanda this season, especially when she talks about her relationship. She is kind of saying like, I need this. I need to go to the summer house because I cannot fucking stand his ass. I want to see other people. I want to see my friends. I want to be with like-minded individuals. I don't want to be dealing with this stick bag. She didn't say it like that, but it's kind of the gist of it. And ultimately what she's looking for is just separation because not only do they live together, but the motherfuckers work together. And last year, she took a pregnancy test. When she found out that she wasn't pregnant, she kind of never really like bounced back. So yeah, obviously they need to talk more in their relationship. It's painfully obvious to the viewer. It kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if you've ever been at a restaurant and you are seated next to like a fucking veteran couple that you know are just there either because of their children or their dogs or some stupid tax complication, but like they fucking cannot stand each other and they literally want to stab each other while they're eating mozzarella sticks. That's the vibe that I get. I know that's oddly specific, and yes, that has happened to me and Alex on multiple occasions. We always get seated next to people who look like they're on the verge of breakup, and it is the best dinner time theater of my life. Anyway, so Amanda kind of looks like she just wants to spit in Kyle's face every second of the day. It makes me giggle, it really does. Anyway, this is not all bad. While they're in the house, there's just like a noticeable shift in energy. Everybody is in a lighter mood. Of course, again, you know, Kyle and Amanda, maybe not so much, but everybody else is pretty fucking chill. This is where you see Wes and Ciara, they kind of start to get a connection with each other, which is really cute. And that first night kind of is, I don't know, I guess it's like anticlimactic, right? Because you're expecting like these big, booming, like fireworks of just like drama and shit, but they were all just really having a good time. They ended the night in bed just like giggling like a fucking 7th grade sleepover. It was adorable. So the next day is pretty much like all fucking hunky-dory. Everyone's in a great mood because they are pretty much preparing for the great big like July 4th party. And now we have our last cast member to join, which is another great name, Jesse Solomon. Anyway, this dude is like 6'4", like fucking brick shit house. And of course, all the girls are like flocking to him because he's 6'4", and it's like, it's a marvel. And of course, this, this makes West a little nervous because, he's a big boy, but he's not that big. And now he's starting to realize that he's no longer, the most eligible bachelor. Him and Jesse are going to have to be in a little competition. So yeah, kind of poor Wes. Thank God for personality, right? Anyway, like this episode ends with Kyle confiding into Paige that he feels like something is off with him and Amanda. And he mentions to her that Amanda's attitude kind of freaks him out a little bit because he is really trying his hardest to work on the next chapter of their lives. And she's complaining that he works too much and he only sees it as like, I'm only doing this because I need to provide for this family. And if we're going to have children, like this is scaring the fuck out of me, basically. So he doesn't really feel like he is on the same page as Amanda. Then Paige, being the good friend that she is, goes straight to fucking Amanda and is like, hey girl, let me relay this conversation. And she does it in a very constructive way. And Amanda is just like, not buying it. She's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? She basically calls bullshit on the whole thing and she's just like, don't listen to that asshole. Kyle has been stressed out at work, fucking takes it out on her all the time. He's trying to paint himself in a way that makes her look like the bad guy. No, bitch. He's the bad guy. And it's funny because when you're like just mad at somebody and like you don't fuck with them. And no matter what they say, it could be like something that's literally legit or not. You automatically are on the defense because you're like, fuck that dude. Like that's kind of the vibe of this whole situation. Anyway, this is just fucking delicious to watch though. As a viewer, this is fucking amazing. To be a fly on the fucking wall. Ugh. Now, I know, I hear you. You're probably saying, Theresa, there's nothing really fucking interesting about this show. Bitch, hold on, okay? Because while, yes, it was kind of like a lackluster first episode, it really sets the tone of like how much better off these fucking people in this house are when Carl and Lindsay are just not in it. And it becomes evident. It really does. So let's go to episode 2. So in episode 2, we kind of go back to when Kyle and Amanda are fighting. They wake up, she's basically kind of giving him a death stare. He's just like, hey babe, let's talk about it. And she's like, hey, go fuck yourself. Maybe not in so many words, but like, again, the vibe. They are clearly not on the same page, let alone the same fucking galaxy at this point. Paige even tries to, I guess, like, again, intervene and just be like, hey, like, what I told you, that what Kyle was saying, it shouldn't be taken like an attack. Like, he was just talking to me, confiding in me. Like, I think you guys should, like, kind of talk it out. He wasn't talking shit. It was more of a concern, if anything. But of course, when the hate is that thick, you're never seeing anybody's side on it. You know what I mean? So yeah, Amanda called bullshit again. And you kind of feel in that moment that, maybe this is not going to work out. Maybe they are not going to have a fucking fairy tale story. They're the only couple in the house that is married, and maybe they're fucking heading for divorce. So the weekend closes out, everybody heads back to the city, and during the week, you start to see like Amanda and Kyle kind of patch things up. She's no longer like lasering his face off with her eyes, but you kind of find out a little bit more why she kind of has like this bubbling, seething hate for him. What she hates, which, I mean, listen, I don't fucking blame her. I would hate it too. If someone had a running list of all the things that I'm doing wrong and they constantly bring it up to remind me, I will fuck you up. And for him, he says that, listen, his frustration is kind of stemmed from just being overwhelmed 24/7. So on the other hand, I kind of also understand where the fuck he's coming from too. He kind of spirals because he's afraid that when adding children to the mix, because they don't currently have children, that it's just going to get that much more crazier. Now, like I mentioned before, Amanda is very laid back. And I feel like that's where kind of like the huge age difference shows. I feel like if you were born in the 80s, 99% of the time, you are fucking stressed out and overwhelmed. I know, speaking from experience, okay? And you just suffer from extreme fucking anxiety. And listen, I'm sure it doesn't just start in the 80s. I know there's generations prior that have experienced this all and then some. But that said, I feel like, and maybe I'm biased because I was born in the 80s, but the majority of the people that I meet that are born in like the 90s or like the 2000s are just way more fucking chill. Like, way more chill. And that could drive someone born in the 80s fucking crazy. It's like, why are you relaxed? So yeah, listen, moral of the story, they're not communicating right. They need to figure out how to speak the same fucking language, basically. So while they did wind up kind of like putting a Band-Aid over like a broken pipe, I say that because I don't think this will be the last conversation, but for now, the leak has stopped but you're kind of seeing a little bit of like a fucking trickle down the pipe, you know? So whatever, we fast forward to the next weekend. And now everybody this weekend, everybody's in the Hamptons. And it's fucking awkward because this is the first weekend that Carl and Lindsay joined everybody. And Carl and Lindsay are aware of how peaceful, even though Amanda and Kyle kind of like, meh, it was still fucking peaceful. And they're starting to feel a little insecure because, you know, hey, now it might not be so peaceful because they arrived. So when Lindsay arrives, she kind of like beelines it to the rosé, which, I mean, if I was Lindsay, I'd probably do the fucking same thing too. So that night, the group has like a family style dinner where you find out a little bit more about everybody, or really the new cast members. So Paige asks a question like, tell us something about you that we wouldn't know. So Wes goes first and he says, well, I've been to all 50 states. And then Jesse Solomon says, well, you know, I'm actually a 2-time cancer survivor, which by the way, fucking kudos. And I hope he remains cancer free. But what fucking took me out in this episode is how like Wes looked at Ciara and was like, can you imagine if Jesse went first and then I said, oh, I've been to all 50 states. I fucking died. The timing was so good. And I think that the addition of Wes is just a breath of fresh air. We need a little kind of comedic relief. And he's fucking delivering it. He really is. Anyway, they finish dinner and they decide, you know what, we're gonna be going to the club. And since there are so many people in the house, they decide to call for 2 lifts. So the first lift had pretty much all the guys and Lindsay, and then the second lift had the rest of the house, which is pretty much all the girls. Now, of course, what transpires now didn't fucking happen on camera, which is a fucking shame. But apparently Lindsay, who was drinking earlier in the day, who, might I add, was kind of feeling like a massive amount of anxiety. Not gonna say that this was the reason, but I'm sure it played into it. But she started kind of like feeling just kind of like massive anxiety that like with her leaving with the guys, kind of isolating all the girls, they're probably gonna be like, and like just talking shit about her. And listen, if you are feeling some type of way and having like a really weird energy coming into this house, I feel like it almost makes sense to think that way because you're gonna be fucking paranoid. Like it's natural to be paranoid and assume the worst, especially considering all the bullshit that happened in prior seasons, right? So Carl, who is just trying to be a nice guy at this point, right? He's trying to like calm her down and he's like, hey, listen, you're fine. Don't worry about it. I don't think anybody really gives a shit. It's not that deep. Everything's gonna be okay. Lindsay, who I think just wants him to be a little bit more sympathetic, it kind of feels like she's looking for somebody that agrees with her. She was not fucking having it. So they wind up going to the club. And this is where Amanda comes in. Because while yes, she was at the club and she was drinking, she was also like a little fucking detective because she took notes on what was going on in the club since there were no cameras. And she noted that Lindsay was visibly upset at Carl. And it's just kind of like saying over and over again, he's so mean to me. Okay, interesting. He must be on something. What? Next thing you know, it cuts to like probably like maybe an hour later or whatever, and you see like Lindsay and Gabby walking into the house. And I think at this point, Gabby's pretty much the only girl that has Lindsay's back. All the other girls are kind of like staying away from Lindsay with the 10-foot fucking pole. Gabby's there to comfort her. So Gabby is like, you know, trying to calm her down, trying to play devil's advocate a little bit. And then Lindsay kind of launches into this whole speech about how Carl is on something. This behavior is reminiscent to when he would be fucked up on cocaine. And he must not be sober. He's a huge piece of shit. Like a fucking laundry list, okay? And this is all being recorded. And you're like, huh? Like, it's just fucking, it's so uncomfortably good. So, of course, you know, Gabby is just really just trying to, you know, remain calm and just being like, hey, you're throwing out some heavy accusations there, friend. And again, she's kind of like reassuring her that like, this is like, dude, it's all in your head. I was in the other car with the girls. No one's talking shit. Nobody fucking cares, girl. Okay, nobody cares. Like, get out of your head. So Lindsay, I mean, who I feel like was like backed into a corner like a fucking feral animal, decides to double down. And she texts Carl that they should talk when he's sober. And Carl responds, I am sober right now. You're not, period. It was serious. Dude spelled the word, and it wasn't some passive aggressive bullshit where they just put like a fucking period at the end of the goddamn sentence. No. He wrote period. Anyway, Lindsay winds up just like passing out in Gabby's room, which, I mean, poor Gabby. So the next day, you see Carl like sleeping like a little angel baby in the room, and then he gets woken up by like a wild Lindsay Hubbard who literally kind of just stomps into the room and is like, "You want water?" and like throws a water bottle on him. Like, oh, girl, I can't. And Carl, who is like eerily calm at this point, still eerily calm, is like, "I'd rather not have water right now, but thank you. I appreciate it." And so Lindsay's like, "You're not having water right now? Oh my God. Can't you just say thank you? Bitch, what the fuck? Did you not hear what he Jesus, okay." You got some balls for saying that shit. So they kind of go back and forth at this point. "I didn't treat you like shit. Sorry that you felt that way. Stop saying you're sorry you felt that way. That's not an apology." Like, they're literally just kind of just fucking screaming at each other. And this is all at like 8 a.m. So Lindsay like just looks at him dead in the face and says, "Let me ask you another question." Lindsay like pulls out her phone and she's like, "Why did you say I'm sober right now?" As if it was like some sort of smoking gun, you know? So Carl simply says, "Lindsay, I'm fucking sober. You drank all day, you were rude and aggressive to me, and then I'm trying to be supportive. This is so fucked up. You're so fucked up." And then it just fades to black with the simple words scrawled across the screen, "To be continued." Are you fucking kidding me, Bravo? You can't do that. You can't cock tease me like that, okay? You can't. Anyway, so episode 3 is a little bit of a doozy. We pick up where we once left off, which is pretty much Lindsay just questioning Carl's sobriety. And they cut to the confessional where one of the show's producers asked Lindsay, "Did you at any point think that Carl wasn't sober?" And Lindsay is like, "Well, I mean, you see, I'm trying to fucking backtrack. I probably should have used, more delicate words, but LOL." That is pretty much the gist of it. Now, granted, listen, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, okay? And listen, we've all been in a moment where we have said things in the heat of the moment when you're like, "Oh, I don't even know why this is leaving my fucking mouth right now." We've all been there. It's human. And if you haven't done it, you're a fucking liar because you've done it some point in your life. Because we all, as human beings, are capable of just destroying somebody with our words. So at this point, Lindsay is very much like just doubling down because I think at this point she realizes that the ship is too far. She cannot turn this ship around. And I can't prove that I'm wrong in this very moment. So I'm just going to fucking gaslight you. And I'll just worry about it later. Like, that's what I feel like would happen. So Lindsay kind of goes on to say that his aggressive behavior pretty much kind of like took her back to how he used to act when he wasn't in the greatest of places. And at this point, Carl just is like, "I gotta go." He goes out for a run. And when he comes back, he winds up talking to Kyle about everything. And Kyle kind of points out to Carl immediately like, "Hey, listen, I love Lindsay. I love Lindsay. And I've known her for a very long time, but she's never accountable for her shit. And she never takes responsibility for the situation. And what happened last night is truly unacceptable." And Carl just looks so fucking defeated at this point. And he's like, "This kind of scares me, this whole thing, and it just makes me sad, and I don't know what to do," basically. And so Kyle kind of looks at him and is like, "How often does this fucking happen? How many times are you gonna fall on the sword? Is this worth it?" Which, I mean, that is a great fucking question. It really is. So after this, like, kind of like really super uncomfortable moment, we get to see the new guy, Jesse. And Jesse's being a little too flirtatious with Paige, and she calls him out on it. And listen, in an episode or two, this kind of whole thing kind of like dies out a little bit. I mean, albeit in the most insane possible way. But we'll get to that in the future. So now halfway into the episode, the gang all decide to go to the beach. Mind you, Carl and Lindsay are still not talking. So I cannot imagine for the life of me how fucking awkward this is. Actually, no, I take that back. One time I had to go to a restaurant with somebody that I wasn't really talking to, and we didn't have to sit next to each other, but we did have to like sit kind of across the table, but like that person was further down. And I was just living my best life to the point where they got so uncomfortable because they realized they weren't going to win. But anyway, what can I say? Everybody liked me. Nobody liked that person. Anyway, any whoosies. So Lindsay now like takes Danielle off to the side and is like, "Hey girl, let's powwow." Now Danielle, again, used to be fucking Lindsay's like former best friend. And Lindsay pretty much asked Danielle, hey, I noticed you haven't really RSVP'd to my wedding. Which, I mean, in hindsight, it's kind of funny considering how awful the fight between Carl and Lindsay was. You kind of think that it's grounds for breaking up. And then Lindsay is like, you didn't RSVP, girl. What happened? Fuck. I mean, honestly, the last thing I would want to talk about is my fucking wedding at this point. But when you have to pay for so many plates, you know, you got to know your fucking numbers, right? Anyway, Danielle is pretty transparent and is like, hey, do you really want me to come to your wedding? Or like, did you just invite me because you were like, I feel fucking obligated because I only want to come here if you want me to be there. And Lindsay was like, no, girl, we're friends. The wedding is going to be great. Of course I want you to be there. And Danielle, who's kind of like still reluctant, is like, okay, great. Well, I guess I'm coming. So it was kind of nice to see them kind of, I don't know, getting along, right? Because last season was so insane. Now, mind you, as I'm recording this, there have been plenty of episodes that have passed because I'm only recapping like the first 3. My thoughts have changed a lot. A lot about Danielle, but at this point, Danielle just seems like, yeah, like really just positive and all that stuff. But whew, we'll get there in the future. But anyway, while at the beach, you know, Carl kind of musters up the courage to go talk to Lindsay. And in a way, this conversation kind of really felt like Carl just fell on the sword. He apologizes. And it's kind of wild because you kind of can tell that he wanted to just be like, hey, go fuck yourself. But he didn't. Instead, like he acknowledged that he didn't mean to dismiss her. And she was like, well, yeah, I was right. It was so uncomfortable. The motherfucker even said like, Lindsay, I love you. And she was like, yeah, I know. It was a weird conversation. Like, bitch, are you kidding me right now? What is going on? Oh God. You know I said falling on the sword. It was more than that. Like he literally impaled everything from this life, his next life, and the fucking 8 lives beyond that. Like he really, really fell hard. It's fucking wild, honestly. Anyway, that evening, the house decides to kind of like stay in while the other half like go to dinner. So Ciara, West, Danielle, and Carl go out to dinner. And then Kyle, Gabby, Lindsay, Paige, and Jesse stay in. So at dinner, Ciara kind of brings up like the whole Lindsay situation. And Carl, being fucking Carl, is like, yeah, listen, I fucked up, okay? Like, she had every right to say everything that she possibly could say to me, questioning my sobriety. She was right. It's all good. Listen, we go to couples therapy. We're doing all right. And during couples therapy, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard and awful, but like we always come back to each other. So it's good. We're good. Can I just get the check and get the fuck out of here so I could stop answering questions? That's essentially what happens. So then back at the house, Lindsay and Paige, who, listen, they have never been fucking friends. In many ways, I feel like they just kind of tolerate each other for the paycheck. Gabby initiated like a meeting of the minds between both of the girls. And you find out that there was like this weird rumor that happened that there was like in a prior season where I guess something got leaked where Craig, who's again Paige's boyfriend, got drunk and got kicked out of Kyle and Amanda's wedding. And apparently it was all bullshit. But Paige was very, very convinced that Lindsay was the one to spread it or to at least leak it online. But that wasn't the case because Lindsay revealed that it was Danielle that did it. So, yeah. Ooh, okay. In Paige's confessional, she was like, it felt like Lindsay, you know, was trying to get me to turn against Danielle. And listen, I have to agree. It's kind of funny because like Lindsay, I think, was making strides on the beach with Danielle and like really like, hey, trying to like get our friendship back on track. And then that happens. You're like, ooh, you're one of those people. Got it. But again, now also knowing what I know about Danielle, again, we'll talk about that in the future. Listen, Lindsay is really solidifying her seat at the table in Bravo. And I say kudos to you, girl. You know how to make wonderful reality TV. You really do. So this episode kind of ends where there is an adorable first date with West and Ciara. Kind of while all of this like drama and shit has been like unfolding, you kind of see West and Ciara getting a little bit closer. And it's just a really cute relationship. And there actually appears to be a genuine connection, which is really nice. It's not something that feels very forced like most reality TV show relationships. This actually seems very legit. And it's kind of cute. Like they're very slow in their courting, and I don't know, they're adorable. You kind of still don't really know if they are like still together or not. Like I hope they are, and I know they kind of have to be quiet for the show and stuff, but like they look really, really sweet though. Now this is where it gets really funny. Okay, so like the last like 5 minutes or so, you see Lindsay meeting Carl at a sober bar. Anyway, Carl kind of starts to open up to Lindsay about how, listen, while he has been out of work, it's been a really, really nice break. And he's been really thinking kind of like long and hard about what he wants to do. In Lindsay's confessional, she talks about how Carl doesn't follow through. Everything that he gets mildly excited for, he'll start to go into that direction and then ultimately just abandon it. So for example, he was interested in wanting to start a podcast. So they got the equipment and then nothing happened. He wanted to be a motivational speaker, but nothing happened. He tried an employment coach for 6 months, and that led to absolutely nowhere. So you can see why she is getting frustrated, because he's not doing anything. Because at least if he tried, at least you did something, but he didn't. Instead, he dreams big and then just doesn't follow through. Which, I mean, listen, that's very fucking relatable. So while at the sober bar, he's like, listen, by the end of summer, I'm gonna have a plan. And I think I want to explore the idea of creating a sober sports bar. I feel like, you know, I can help people. And Lindsay just kind of looks at him very blankly, probably the best way I can describe it, and is like, yeah, I'm gonna say no to that. I don't want that for the future of our family. Sorry. So get a new idea. Who? Fuck. Any joy that man had literally pissed out on the floor of that sober bar. Holy shit. Now, mind you, this is only episode 3. And considering how many episodes have aired already, fucking this is just like the tip of the iceberg. You know, it's funny because like last year, it was bananas them breaking up. And Carl kind of has been like branded as a pure villain, right? He was pretty much on the same like wavelength as Tom Sandoval. But when you show shit like this and you start to see like, oh, okay, you kind of start to question everything. This season by far is definitely starting out really strong. And as a longtime viewer, I'm just fucking here for it. I think it's great. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this little recap. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the format of every video. Initially, I think I was going to just do it where I was just talking, but I figured, you know what, today is probably the perfect day to do this. I have to get ready to go to work, and I want to do, you know, fucking things that I want to do. I want to have more fun doing videos, and one thing that I love more than anything is Bravo. And while, yes, I do love makeup, I also love telling a good fucking story. So the next video will definitely be a lot shorter, but I wanted to make this one a little bit longer because I wanted to paint a picture of who these people are. All right, I have to get to work, but just want to say thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for listening to my tale. And of course, if you have any constructive feedback, let me know down below. I am all ears. And again, thank you so much to my patrons and my lovely YouTube members for keeping this garbage boat afloat. I love your faces. And that said, I'll see you motherfuckers on Friday. Bye.